everyone, and welcome. My name is Brandon Scott, and I'm Customer and Brand Marketing Manager with Nufarm. And today, I'm going to be talking about Trunemco, a new patented nematode technology from Nufarm. The topics we're going to be covering include an overview of plant parasitic nematodes and the reason we need a new technology. From there, we'll move into what are the key attributes that we're looking for in a new nematode protection product. And then finally, we'll wrap things up with more information about Trunemco and what makes it different from the products that are available on the market today. So let's go ahead and kick things off with an overview of nematodes, a widespread problem. Broadly speaking, nematodes are generally an overlooked pest because they're largely unseen. As a result, the damage caused by nematodes is often attributed to other crop stressors. Oftentimes, we think of insects, disease, or even environmental factors like drought as being the culprit. As a result of this, nematodes are often overlooked when developing and implementing a crop management plan. Now, this can be a very detrimental effect to the maximum yield potential for the crop. And that's because it's estimated that nematodes cause upwards of $10 billion in lost yield in the United States annually, making plant parasitic nematodes one of the larger pests that growers should be addressing when developing those crop management plans. And so what we often hear from growers after sharing that staggering statistic is one of the first questions is, how do I know if I have nematodes in my area? And what I'll say as a quick aside is we encourage you to look for online resources for specific ways to test for nematodes in your field, or reach out to a local area agronomist or extension specialist for scouting. But for the sake of today's conversation, we'll talk about things very broadly. And so what we have here are three maps corresponding to soybeans, cotton, and corn. And at a very high general level, what you can see here in the colored geographies is essentially where there has been the confirmed presence of damaging nematode species. So without going into the detail, essentially, folks, wherever soybeans, cotton, and corn are being grown, you will find damaging nematode pests. And so the result of that is what we see down below in the three images at the bottom of the screen. In the leftmost image, you can see a soybean root with cysts developing. In the center there, you've got a malformed cotton root mass with galling present across the roots. And in the final image, you can see an underdeveloped corn root because of nematode feeding and establishment. And so this is really what's driving that yield loss, because not only is the plant being stressed because of the damage by the nematode, but it's also impacting the plant's ability to uptake nutrients, and nematodes are known to vector secondary infections and diseases. So in summary, nematodes are present across essentially all key growing areas and cause significant yield drag through damaged roots. And as a result of this, growers really need to keep nematodes in mind and identify the risk for their individual field when making that crop management plan. So moving forward, we've established the need to address nematodes, but why is there a need for a new solution? There's three reasons for that. The first of which is issue escalation. We've already established that nematodes are a $10 billion pest in the United States alone. And we've seen those maps that it's covering those core geographies already. However, recent research has shown that nematodes are continuing to spread and intensify in the key U.S. growing regions. Now, what's most alarming about that research is that it's showing with that intensification that the populations of nematodes in fields are increasing. And this is going to result in even further yield loss. That's the first reason. Reason number two, solution resistance. And so to cite a specific example, we'll say soybean cyst nematode. Research has shown that SCN is beginning to overcome the resistance gene present in over 90% of soybean cyst resistant soybean varieties. So what does this mean? Essentially, regardless of where you live, what seed brand you buy, or what relative maturity you're planting, there is a very high probability that that variety contains the specific resistance gene that is being overcome by the nematode. And so what's most alarming here is that growers believe that they have an effective tool for the defense against nematodes, when in reality, they're probably finding themselves unprotected. And then the third and final reason a new technology is needed is because of limited choices. There is a narrow scope of effective seed-applied nematode protection products that are currently available, and none of which really pull together the trifecta of attributes that we're looking for with, number one, leading level of protection against nematodes, number two, an increase in yield on all of those crops, and then number three, clear application convenience. So moving forward, now that we've talked about the pest in general and kind of teed up what attributes we're looking for, let's take a look a little bit deeper in how we can identify those attributes and the specifics around each one. So to start things off, let's talk about performance. I'm going to break that into three pieces and kick things off with scope. So when we're talking about scope, we're really looking for activity on all key nematode species. And without reading each one of these to you individually, just suffice to say that for each one, soybeans, cotton, and corn, these 3 to 5 species are the most damaging nematodes in each one of those crops. So what we're looking for from a product is to offer protection against those species. That is what you're getting with Trunemco. You are getting protection of those plants from these most damaging nematode species. So that covers scope. Let's then move to efficacy. And when we talk about efficacy, we're talking about how effective is that protection against those damaging nematodes. And we'll start by taking a look at protection. What I'll draw your attention to is this chart on the left. And what we're looking at is relative percent damage. And for the sake of this chart, this graph, lower is better. And so I will draw your attention again to this yellow bar on the right. It is the lowest, indicating that it offers the leading level of protection against nematode damage. This translates into increased yield. By offering that leading level of protection, it allows the plant to perform better and tack on more yield. And that's what's illustrated here. So we've kind of already established the scope, the species we want to protect against, and the increase in efficacy. Let's talk about the final component of performance, and that is consistency. So what's being illustrated here is an increase in yield in soybeans, cotton, and corn, which indicates that leading level of protection across those 3 crops. Okay, so we've established how Trunemco offers that leading level of protection and the increased yield. Now we'll pause briefly there and move into how does Trunemco work and what makes it different. And in order to have this conversation, we're just going to briefly talk about 3 general categories in which nematode protection products fit in order to have the conversation of how Trunemco works different. So we're going to put them into broad categories. The first of those is direct impact to nematodes. So products that fit into this category work within the soil to directly impact the nematode, reducing both the population and the relative damage that's being caused by the nematode. Examples of those products can be found in the box over here to the left. That's the first category. The second category is what we've coined microbial competition. And what you can think of with these type of products is they contain a component that actually colonizes the root zone and makes it more difficult for nematodes to reach the plant in the first place. Now, Trunemco fits in part into this category as well, but it's the third and final category where Trunemco differentiates itself from the other products in the marketplace. That's the priming of plant physiology. And Trunemco actually increases the relative average expression of key defense genes, activating natural nematode barriers within the plant. So what does this look like? Well, it manifests itself in the plant in 3 key ways. The first of which is an increase in cell wall components, creating a physical barrier to nematode attack. The second of which is by increasing the natural nematode toxic compounds that the plant will deploy to fend off an attacking nematode. And then the third and final natural nematode barrier is by preparing the cell body to respond to an invasion. And so in the event of a nematode attacking a Trunemco treated plant, the plant will then deploy one or more of these natural nematode barriers to fend off that nematode. And so what you may have noticed was that Trunemco actually has two modes of action in defense of nematodes. And leading with the priming of plant physiology, that is an internal component of defense. The previous category of microbial competition is external. And so the result is a dual defense against nematodes, both inside and out of the plant, leading to that increased level of protection from nematodes. And so just to illustrate what this looks like, we've got an image here of soybean roots, and these have been harvested from plants that were grown in pots that were inoculated with soybean cyst nematode. So just very briefly, there are 4 vials here. The first one on the left, as clearly labeled at the bottom of the picture, is the check. The second is Trunemco. The third vial is a competitor that comes from the microbial competition category. And then the fourth, competitor number 2, is of the direct impact type of product. And so what's clearly illustrated here is that Trunemco is offering a leading level of protection against nematode damage, which allows that plant to thrive, developing a very robust and full root mass, allowing the plant to thrive and deliver a higher yield. So we've talked about several key things with Trunemco, essentially that leading level of protection. We've talked about how it delivers higher yields. And the final piece here is the application convenience. So just very briefly, Trunemco has an ultra-low use rate of 0.3 fluid ounces per 100 weight of seed, compared to a typical use rate of 3 to 6 fluid ounces from the competition. And why that's important is there's a finite amount of seed space available. And with Trunemco, you don't have to compromise. The grower is able to rely on all the tools that they've come to trust for their seed treatments. Attribute number 2, signal word caution, is indicative that Trunemco is of the relatively safer products of those available today. And then finally, compatible with most seed treatments. So in summary, we've talked about the overview of plant parasitic nematodes. They're a $10 billion yield robber in the United States. We've talked about the need for a new nematode solution because of the escalation of the issue with nematodes. We've got resistance being developed, and there's a limited scope of product available. Hence why we're so excited to be introducing Trunemco, which offers a leading level of protection, increased yields, and clear application convenience. With that, I want to thank everyone for the time today. For those of you who may have a question, please send us an email to na.marketing@nufarm.com. For additional information about Trunemco or Nufarm, please visit nufarm.com/uscrop/Trunemco. And with that, I'm Brandon Scott with Nufarm. Thank you for your time.